A man searches on a dating app. He accidentally discovers a beautiful woman. However, he does not know that, a few days ago, the person was a terrifying monster. The man cannot resist temptation. He has an affair with the beauty. This leads to his soul being imprisoned. His body is about to become a tool for the demon's arrival. In the end, to protect his wife and children, he makes a decision. The man is named Chris. He originally has a happy family. However, not long ago, the couple had problems due to daily trivialities. Their relationship faced issues. They temporarily live apart. Chris seizes the opportunity. His friend Eddie suggests that he should relive the joys of being single. He just needs to register online, to match with beautiful women, and enjoy a wonderful experience. Chris is immediately intrigued. He registers on a dating site. As he clicks the mouse, the screen quickly scrolls. Soon, he successfully matched with a beautiful woman. However, to his surprise, the person is his wife Sharon's best friend Caroline. Seeing this situation, Chris instantly has a headache. Right now, he is just having a conflict with his wife. If Caroline reveals this, his marriage will be over. As he considers how to deal with it, Caroline calls him. She questions Chris, "Is the person you matched with you?" Chris denies it. After some explanation, Caroline temporarily stops pressing him. Just then, he is startled again. His wife Sharon calls him. Chris feels panic inside. Fortunately, she does not know about what just happened. The wife just inquires about the status of the baby monitor at home. It shows that there is a problem. She has been unable to log in. Chris promised that he will check it right away. Sharon hangs up the phone in relief. However, in reality, after Chris hangs up, the first thing he does is delete that cursed website. But before he can take action, he is drawn to the matched beauty. Even more surprisingly, he does not know this person at all. She seems like the perfect match. Just then, a hot woman calls him via the website. With a video call, Chris hesitates for a moment, but he decides to answer it. As the video starts, Chris discovered that the woman is using effects and is wearing sunglasses, so her appearance is completely hidden. But her figure is indeed as shown in the pictures. The two of them chat happily. Chris learned that the girl's name is Adra. Her eyes seem to have an ailment that makes her fear sunlight. That's why she wears sunglasses. Their conversation is pleasant. The atmosphere gradually heats up. Then Chris hopes that she can turn off the effects. Adra agrees, but only for 1 minute. This not only failed to satisfy Chris, but instead ignited his desire. He suggests wanting to see her figure. Once he has had his fill of looking, Chris finally stated that he is a family man and has a child with him. His company recently went bankrupt as well. If Adra has any other intentions, she will only be disappointed. What Chris did not expect was that Adra not only does not distance herself from him, but instead continually comforts him gently. Such a perfect woman. Chris is instantly captivated. Just then, she extends an olive branch. She invites Chris to come to her place if he has time, or to meet up if he doesn't. Chris looks at the map on the website and falls into deep thought. He has nothing to lose. Surely they won't take his organs, right? As he is pondering, a gust of wind blows into the room. It seems something has fallen to the ground. Chris goes over to check. He discovers it is a wedding photo. However, at this moment, the frame is already shattered, seemingly foreshadowing the outcome of their marriage. He thinks again. Chris decides to reject Adra. Then, he goes to care for the waking child. Chris does not notice that his website account logs in automatically. Chris thinks that things have come to an end. He leisurely scrolls through his phone. Suddenly, Chris noticed that Adra appeared in his friend's circle. She even leaves a comment below. Chris is very shocked. He calls her, claiming to end this immoral relationship. However, Adra does not care at all. She keeps sending messages. Finally, she sends a video. Chris sees the cover. He is once again attracted. Chris thinks no one is around. He has no more concerns. However, he seems to forget that there is a baby monitor above him. Soon, Chris's mother calls him. She reminds her son to watch his image before he can react. Next, Sharon calls him as well. She scolds Chris on the spot. It turned out that just a moment ago, Caroline mentioned his situation. Sharon does not believe it. She checks the monitor. Then she discovered Chris's actions. Even worse, Sharon has other friends around her. Combining her friend's description, she thinks that Her husband is interested in Caroline. They argue about this. After going through this, Chris's marriage is completely shattered, but he is not an ordinary person. After a brief moment of calm, he still dares to video call Sharon. She doesn't seem to be angry anymore. So in the video, she turns on an aging effect. Chris hopes that his wife will show her true self, but he learned that she hasn't turned on any effects at all. Just as he is puzzled, the wrinkles on Sharon's face disappear. Faced with this strange sight, Chris thinks he is seeing things, but after this, strange events began to occur one after another. The first was that a stranger contacted him. The person claimed to be Orion. Chris opens Orion's profile. He discovered that he is a physicist. This person has no relation to him. What confuses Chris even more is that Orion directly asks him if in the last few hours he had encountered a certain beautiful woman online. This sudden question makes Chris even more puzzled. Considering the need to be cautious, Chris does not respond to him, but Orion claimed that Chris is in a very dangerous situation now. If it's just simple communication, that's fine, but once there is physical contact, he will really be in trouble. Hearing this, Chris becomes very angry. He warned Orion that if he continues to spy on him, he will report him to the police. After Chris finishes speaking, he hangs up the phone. Then Chris opens the website. He sees Adra's video invitation. Chris connects the call. He noticed that she looks somewhat haggard. Adra claimed that her feelings have been hurt, and she asks Chris to come over. Only then does Chris realize that he has unknowingly booked a visit to Adra's house. Combining this with Orion's earlier words, Chris immediately concludes that he has been hacked, which is how Orion knows those details. At this moment, Orion sends another message, but this time it is not just a few words, but a description of the terror of Adra, and there is a video at the end. Chris wants to see what kind of trick Orion is playing. When he opens the video, he saw a normal white goat, but in the next moment, it gives birth to a terrifying monster, and it has a human face as well. Orion claimed that the monster is Adra. Chris still has doubts. He searches online for the professor's information. Chris discovered that the professor has a bad reputation. He has been accused of sexually harassing female students multiple times. He was expelled from the university. Chris speculated that Adra is one of the victims. Orion wants revenge, which is why he would frame her. Therefore, Chris is unconcerned. He informs Adra about this. Chris advises her to be careful of Orion. He suggests reporting him to the police. However, for some reason, Adra strongly opposes this. At the same time, she tells Chris that she is very scared right now. Adra hoped that Chris can protect her. Hearing this, Chris hesitates again. After all, he still needs to care for his child. However, a phone call makes Chris alert again. It's a call from his friend Eddie. He inadvertently reveals that he had accessed Chris's account and made an appointment to go to Adra's house. Upon hearing this news, Chris is instantly bewildered. Since it was Eddie who accessed the account, how did Orion find out about it? Therefore, Chris prepares to refuse Adra's request, but unexpectedly, she asks Chris to watch something stimulating. Hearing this line, Chris is tempted. He follows her request and brings a candle. Then he turns off the lights in the room. As the firelight flickers, Adra takes off her sunglasses. Her stunning face appears before Chris's eyes. He is captivated by her. Chris forgets his previous doubts. All he thinks about is Adra. Then, Adra says she wants to show him around the room. Chris is completely enchanted. He no longer thinks further. Chris's eyes are fixed on the screen. At this moment, he feels a heat rising in his body. Chris takes off his jacket, but suddenly, it seems Chris has passed through the screen. He finds himself in Adra's room, and Chris is lying on the bed. If it were before, he would definitely be confused. But at this moment, Chris has lost his reason. He only thinks about the beautiful woman before him. In the next moment, Adra touched Chris. This is not a fantasy, but the real warmth. The heat in Chris's heart cannot be suppressed. The two begin to engage. Their actions become more intense. When Chris wakes up again, his intellect returns. Chris recalls the strange events that happened before. He realized he is in Adra's room. He feels a sense of panic. Chris plans to escape from this place. He finds there's no way out beyond the door. Chris realized that something is wrong, but it is already too late. He is trapped in the realm controlled by Adra. If nothing goes wrong, Chris will be trapped to die here. In this desperate moment, he thinks of someone Orion. Since he knows Adra so well, he probably has a way to help. So, Chris pulls out his phone and calls him. He tells Orion about his strange experience. Chris hoped that he can save him and help him escape. Upon hearing about Chris's situation, Orion says, "Don't worry, there's still a chance." At this moment, he has only had a mental exchange with the demon. He hasn't had any real physical contact, so Chris is only trapped in spirit, while his body is still at home. As long as Chris can escape this confinement, he can completely break free from her. The way to leave is very simple. Chris needs to find the flaw in the world he is in, then he can escape. After hearing the guidance, Chris begins to think. Orion stated that he will go to Chris's home to recall Chris's soul from the physical realm, but he is not entirely sure. The most direct method is still for Chris to leave through the flaw himself. Just then, the phone suddenly disappears. However, Chris already knows the method. Soon, he discovered a flaw. It is just a small hole, but he can see what is happening at home, especially the computer that is still on. At this moment, a photo pops up on the desktop. It is sent by Eddie. From the image, he has arrived outside Adra's house. Chris wants to stop his companion from stepping into the abyss, but at this moment, he is merely a trapped soul. Chris can do nothing. He can only watch as Eddie pushed the door open. In the outside world, Eddie is very happy. Chris actually gave up the beautiful woman. He definitely can't miss this opportunity. However, as Eddie looks around the room, he does not see Adra's figure. Just then, he notices a note on the table. Based on the information, Eddie excitedly walks up to the second floor. He sees a door that is emitting a faint glow. Obviously, this is where Adra is. Eddie looks forward to a wonderful encounter. He pushed open the door, but in the next moment, the surroundings instantly turn pitch black. Fortunately, he has a candle in his hand, so he can see his surroundings. As Eddie is puzzled, Adra's figure appears not far away. He saw the beautiful woman. Eddie instantly forgets his doubts. He follows Adra's footsteps, and arrived in an empty room. In the center is a large bed, and on the wall behind, there is the shadow of a horned demon. But Eddie is already under control. He does not care about these strange things. Only one thought remains in his mind, a strong desire driven by instinct. At this moment, Adra no longer disguises herself. She teases Eddie with her words. Adra turns him into a puppet. The next process is very simple. Eddie lifts the covers and offers himself to the demon. The process is not important. Eddie is already under control, even a rotting corpse. In his eyes, it is a stunning beauty. When Eddie loses his value, he can only face death. Chris is in the spiritual world. He watches his friend die tragically. Chris feels sorrow, but he does not forget his current situation. So Chris pulls himself together. He follows the flaw in the wall. He tears open a gap in the spiritual world. As long as he passes through here, he can return to his physical body. However, things won't be that simple. At the connection point of the two worlds, there is an endless abyss. Given Chris's condition, he would surely fall into it, but now he has no choice. So, Chris gathers his courage. He thinks of the beautiful moments with his family. Finally, he leaps into the air. Chris successfully falls into the abyss. If he had stayed for a moment, perhaps things would have changed, because Orion had come to his home. He looks at Chris's vacant body. He first tries simply, but no matter how he calls, Chris remains unresponsive. After all, at this moment, Chris's soul is plummeting in the abyss. He has no possibility of action, because Chris does not respond. Orion realized that it's too late to act. He can only eliminate this body, to prevent the demon from causing chaos through Chris. Orion pulls out his gun. He plans to deal with Chris. However, just at this moment, Sharon pushed the door open. Seeing this sudden turn of events, Orion hides in the corner. As Sharon opens the door, she saw her husband sitting there in a daze. She is immediately drawn to him. Sharon does not notice Orion hiding in the corner behind her. Seeing that Sharon hasn't noticed him, Orion plans to sneak away. He accidentally bumps the baby rocker. Even worse, Sharon happens to catch the scene. She dials the phone to call the police. Seeing this situation, Orion decides to stop hiding. He rushes out from behind. Orion uses the gun to control Sharon. During their struggle, Sharon's self-defense spray splashes into Chris's eyes. He actually moves. Of course, they do not notice this change. Orion tells Sharon to cancel the police call. He learned that the usually unreliable police have surprisingly already set out this time. Orion is troubled, wondering how to deal with this situation. Chris's computer pops up a video. The video features Adra. She now possesses the power from Eddie's sacrifice. Adra can remotely control electronic devices. Orion shuts the computer down. to prevent being entranced. However, he does not realize, Adra's restored powers go far beyond that. In Sharon's terrified gaze, the projection of Adra's true form appears behind Orion. If she continues, soon, Adra will be able to descend into this world. Thinking of this, Orion takes out his gun again, preparing to kill Chris's body. However, he did not expect Adra to be faster. Before Orion could pull the trigger, she possesses Chris. Sharon saw her husband coming back to himself. She steps forward to stop Orion. Taking advantage of Orion's distraction, she knocks the gun out of his hand. As Orion bends down to pick it up, the gun surprisingly moves into Sharon's hand. The situation flips in an instant. Orion tries to persuade Sharon to make her understand that it is a demon, not Chris. But no matter how Orion explains, Sharon does not believe him at all. Instead, as he moves closer, her fear only grows. Eventually, she fires and hits Orion. Fortunately, it does not hit any vital areas. Orion can only leave the scene, and Chris falls back into a daze. Perhaps the demon's restored power is not much. Before, it was just a show of force. Now, she has exhausted her energy. The demon can only leave temporarily. Therefore, Chris's soul leaves the abyss. He returns to his original body. After a long time, Chris's home returns to peace. Those events seem like mere fantasies, but will the demon really give up? The answer is no. One day, Chris feels restless again. He opens that website. Chris matches with a beautiful woman again. He clicks on her video. However, unexpectedly, this is a trap set by the demon. After these days, her power has recovered even more. Through the video, she can come to Chris's side, instantly corrupting this fallen soul and taking over this body. Afterward, Sharon walks out of the house. The demon uses Chris's body to have intense exchanges with his wife. The demon plans to bring more demons into the world. At this moment, Chris still has some sanity. To prevent this from happening again, in front of his wife, Chris cut off his own organ. Just then, the missing Orion reappeared. He is unaware of the current situation. Orion thinks that Chris is the embodiment of the demon. Immediately, he delivered a heavy blow to Chris's head. From that moment on, Chris becomes a vegetative state. Logically speaking, the demon's plan is completely shattered. But unexpectedly, Sharon really wants a child. So, she uses in vitro fertilization technology. Sharon extracts some sperm. She becomes pregnant again. Ironically, her close friend, in order to fulfill her wish of becoming a mother, also chooses to conceive Chris's child. The film ends here. Incubus is a film that just premiered this year. In terms of the plot, it is simply a traditional story of demon invasion, but the setting of the demon is very innovative. It surprisingly requires various means to manifest. Only then can it descend into the world. Moreover, the film's setup of using electronic devices to ensnare souls is also very novel. Lastly, Adra's casting is very fitting. She is indeed a famous model. Overall, it is a horror film that meets or exceeds the passing line. If you have some free time, it is worth watching. Thank you all for watching. If you like my channel, please give me a subscribe.